let's just sew whatever. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Mirabel handbag from Bagstock Designs. It is such a cute pattern. I made some changes, of course. We added this little strip here. I omitted some foam. I cut the lining a little bit so that it wasn't saggy inside. And then I will tell you in the video to cut something down to 1/8 of an inch instead of 1/4 of an inch. And I will second guess myself. And then I am proven right for why I second guessed myself. And it is because my zipper started fraying right there. So great. So don't do that. But I'm very happy with the other changes that I've made. I think it turned out super cute. I do have a cutting video for this bag where I show how I cut it with the changes. But the key point of this bag is that it has a fully enclosed zipper panel. So you can see fully enclosed. That is just like 2 pieces that you sew to create this interior here. And this does lift up and you can see the rest of the lining there. So it has a section zippered pocket, and then I added a zipper overlay, but otherwise it's normally just a zippered pocket. So yeah, I used all the materials are on my website, all the hardware, etc. And then the pattern, like I said, is from Bagstock Designs. So let's get into making this. Don't forget to subscribe and have a great day. We're gonna get started on sewing the Mirabel handbag, tote bag, the Mirabel bag from Bagstock Designs. I made one last night because I wanted to see how my materials would work. And I will be honest, I chose vinyl, waterproof cotton, and nylon for the other one. And it is a bit too thick at the top for top stitching because of the foam. So I'm gonna try to figure out a way to maybe do better this time. But anyway, I'm gonna get started. I have this cute little leather tag that I wanted to sew on. This is from the Sewing Blurb subscription. So I'm gonna start with that. And I'm just following the outside edge on that tag. That's kind of like the stitch line. Pulling my threads to the back before I get there, and then stopping exactly where I need it to be. I'm pulling that to the back. So in my cutting video, I go over everything that I have cut out for this bag. I'm using waterproof cotton, recycled nylon, and then just a couple of vinyl pieces for the accents inside the bag. After I cut some of the pieces, I realized like this pattern is completely written for quilting cottons, cotton material, and very domestic friendly vinyls. So really keep in mind your material selections when you're doing this. But like I said, I'm gonna try to figure out some ways I can do a little bit better. So let's go ahead and get started on our straps and our handles. I cut my crossbody strap to 6 inches wide so that I could have a 1.5 inch crossbody strap. You could also just cut this out of webbing for a pre-made strap. And that's what I did on my other one, and I think that's fantastic. But I thought this might be kind of nice for a travel bag, having this thicker strap. And this fabric is kind of like soft and I don't want to say cushy, but once you fold it up on itself, it's gonna have a little bit of padding, so that'll be fun. So I marked down the center at 3 inches on either side, and I am just taping down to meet that line. I like to start in the center, gently press, and work my way out to the sides. The other change that I am making to this pattern is I'm adding an actual D-ring for the crossbody strap connector. I'm kind of taking inspiration from Mr. Heckles, a pattern from Sincerely Jen Patterns, so that it just feels a little more secure. Okay. So we'll start by top stitching on that open end. My stitch length is set to a 5. This gives it a more professional finish, but it also makes sewing it a lot faster. I am not super worried about the raw edge on this material. If it frays, it won't be much. You could also cover those raw ends with strap ends or use a piece of vinyl to cover it. Waterproof cotton gets thick fast, so it's one that I would not recommend, especially with a domestic machine, like folding over several times. So we're gonna wrap this around the slide adjuster and sew a little box. Come on. And then I'll even do a diagonal line just to really strengthen that. Now that we have that attached, we're gonna grab our snap hooks. And when you increase the width of the strap, you also have to increase the hardware to match. So instead of any 1 inch or 3/4, whatever it was, we're using 1.5 inch. Make sure there's no twisting. And then we're gonna slide this around this end and do a little box stitch. And then I'll just take a lighter to melt without burning any of those ends. But then we have this gorgeous, sturdy, soft strap. Love it. So there's that. And then we're gonna work on the handles. So instead of doing vinyl handles, I decided to cut my handles out of nylon, the recycled nylon that I carry. I thought this would be, so I feel like the materials you choose for the bag set the tone and use of the bag. So like for me, I feel like a nylon is more of like a travel bag or like workout type material, not necessarily like a posh, sophisticated, like maybe a vinyl would. So the materials you choose can really change the tone of the bag. So I wanted this to feel like a cute travel bag, so that's what I'm going with here. So we're just folding the long raw edges into the center and then top stitching along all four sides. The bottom ends will be secured into a seam, so you don't have to stitch over that pretty. Okay. One thing that I didn't love when I made my tester is that this bottom end here at 1.5 inches gets stitched on. So I'm thinking, and I meant to do this with the other side, but it'll be okay, is that I'm going to stitch to the 1.5 inch line, pivot over, and top stitch. That way I'm not repeating a stitch over. I don't know, I just didn't like the look of it. So I'm just making 2 little start and stop lines for myself. And I will just unpick what I've already done up here. Well, no, it's not that serious. It'll be fine. It's only 1 line. Okay. So we've got that top stitch and we left open the bottom 1.5 inches. And I'm going to repeat that on this strap. But I'm going to do it the way that I envisioned previously. We're leaving a little tiny gap that's going to allow for our materials to sit nicely and keep a true 1 inch width. This would be a cute bag to add a little D-ring to on that handle to let a charm hang off of or something. All right, I'm measuring 1.5 up and I will get that started. Right there. And I did not mark the other end, but that's because I'm going to when I get there. There is that. So I'm going to grab the upper exterior that does not have a zippered pocket, and we'll get started with that first. And I really feel like with this pattern, an error that I made was I did not like snip centers for every piece. And I really think this is a pattern you're going to want to do that. So snipping the centers, and then down at the bottom, you're going to measure out a distance that is given in the pattern. And this is where we will be aligning that strap. Clip this to the top. Ooh, I am loving the choice of materials for this. Okay. Just lining that right up against the bottom edge, clipping in place. And I chose light gold hardware with this, but rose gold also would have been an amazing option. I love rose gold and blue. I think it's a good combo. Okay, and then I honestly don't normally keep an eye for which way I've put the fold in the handles, but it is something nice to keep in mind. Okay, we've got that lined up. Right now, I'm debating on adding my foam and doing like a quilt as you go situation. But I think I'm gonna leave the foam off the front and the back and just do the side panels and maybe fuse the foam. I just feel like the finished bag has too much going on and yet not enough. And again, this is for the materials that I have selected. This is not the pattern's fault. This is my choices. Okay, so I'm gonna sew up to this line and come over and then go down. And I love that so much more than trying to stitch over the same thing. And then we'll add a rivet, maybe. I don't know, I feel like a rivet just is gonna add too much attention to that, but that's what that's gonna look like. We can technically go ahead and add our accent piece. Just mark the center before you do it. And I think that's gonna help make the finished bag look a lot more polished. Because this is a rectangle that we're adding to a shaped piece. Fold that down and we'll top stitch. Right now it looks like a really tiny little tote bag. It'd be funny. All right, so I'm setting that aside and we'll finish this side and then we'll get started on our pockets and all that. And if you knew that you would be adding a ton of weight to this bag, you could do a box stitch on this end. And if this print in your contrast here is directional, just be aware of that. Make an adjustment as needed. I'm just laughing because I'm imagining this is a little tote bag. I don't know why. Like those east to west bags, that's how it looks to me. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to our zippered pocket on the front bottom. So fold this in half, snip the centers, top and bottom. Then we've got our center snipped on our zipper pocket facing, and we're gonna line up the center. Clip that in place. And then before I get started on that, I'm gonna add, we want our zipper to go this way. We are gonna be adding our lining to the bottom edge. So keep in mind which way you want your zipper, and that will be attached there. So I'm clipping it up here, but I'm gonna be sewing this to the bottom, and of course when you unzip your zipper you want to look in and see your lining. So we'll sew that on at about 1/4. Might try something. Okay. So here we are on this curved piece. I decreased my stitch length to about 4 so that I can sew along these curves 1 stitch at a time and slowly pivot. So turning, keeping the needle down, sew across the line. I'm just hand cranking so that I can have as nice of a curve as possible. And then we'll trim down the seam allowance here. And there is nothing saying you can't do this twice on your bag and do it to the front and the back of the bag for extra pockets. Just saying. And then I am just snipping into the curve so that can lay as flat as possible. I'm gonna finger press that along the thread and then flip that down. And you can iron waterproof cotton, just try not to use steam so that you don't distort it or anything like that. And just press gently, you know. All right, so if I stitch that on like that, this was the thought I had. Okay, if I stitch that on like that, I can't turn it down, so I need to turn it down. So we'll press this down. I'm gonna go ahead and top stitch this here, right over the line of stitching I've already done, just so this can set nice and flat. If you had a material like a cotton that would have a nice crisp line when you ironed it, you could just iron it, but the nylon doesn't iron the greatest. Like it's not gonna hold that nice crisp shape. Okay, so we're gonna line this up with our facing and clip it to the top edge. And you could tape this down if you needed to. But I'm just gonna kind of clip this into place and top stitch as I go. Increase that stitch length back to the 5 for our top stitch. We are using a nylon coil zipper tape, so we are able to stitch through the teeth. Now we're gonna fold up this lining piece to the top edge, clip it along the top of the bag, but we're not gonna stitch that down yet. We need to close the sides off of our pocket. And then I just kind of flip this up and top stitch here so that nothing shifts as we continue to work on the rest of the bag. Oh, it's so pretty. I was a little worried about the rainbow tape. I'm like, it might be a lot of color, but I think it just kind of adds a little spice. I don't know. I'm gonna put the letter on this side because I think it's kind of fun, like little love letter pocket or something. Okay. We're gonna come back to marking our center I've got a little piece up here that has no zipper tape, so that's where I can snip. You do not want to snip through your zipper tape if you can help it. And then we'll clip there. And then we're going to sew this as close to a 3/8 as we can. And then we'll flip up, top stitching through the contrast. I'm pulling away those layers. Okay, and then I'm going to trim the side so everything sits nicely. So there is that front panel. And again, I'm trying to decide, do I add the foam? Do I not add the foam? I'm a little bit tempted to tell you what I'm thinking. So for the materials that I have chosen, the top zipper panel is super, super thick, super bulky at the top edge of the bag. It made things really hard to sew. I'm almost tempted to cut down my foam so that it's only in like the bottom half of the bag. I think I'm gonna do that. And then I can sew it on by stitching a second line up here and then basting it down. Yeah, I think we should do that. I think I'll be really happy with my choices after that. Okay. And again, this is not because of the pattern, this is because of the materials that I've chosen. They are on the thicker side. I wanted them because they're a little bit thicker, but when you then add the foam, it's just so much. Okay, so we're going to sew a second row of stitching just under this, which is a good thing. It's gonna reinforce our handles even more, and it's keeping that foam from going anywhere. And I am flattening everything out as I do this. Yeah, this is gonna be the winner, man. So I've got a little extra foam here, but that's okay. I use this for interfacing behind my nameplates. So I can just trim that down and I will not have wasted it. So yeah, this looks fantastic. I'm very happy with this. Nice spacious pocket. The rainbow is a fun little pop. Yeah, okay. So then we can repeat that for the other side of the bag. We're going to attach this lower panel after I snip my centers. And again, this side has no pockets, but it could if you wanted to add them. So we're lining up the center, and then a 3/8 inch. And then top stitch on the contrast. Grab our foam, line this up along the top edge of that contrast. If you're riveting through your straps, you could go all the way up to that strap area, but the zipper panel goes down about this far. So that's why I'm choosing to lower it this amount. I'm not riveting through my nylon, so I don't feel like I need to do that. Dang it. My stitches bounced. That's okay. The other thing I'm doing is I'm kind of basting this at 1/4 of an inch-ish. And that is because there's a 1/2 inch seam allowance on this bag. And I want my foam to be out of that basting stitch. So I kind of cut that at an angle so that there isn't foam down here. I'll kind of do the same here. I should have thought about that because it's easier to glide your scissors underneath and not cut it all. Because we are going to sew through this foam again. We just want a little bit less within our seam allowance if we can help it. Okay. I need to add a nameplate. I'll go ahead and do that on this side. I don't really want to because I really jacked up my stitching there, but maybe if I add my nameplate right here, no, that would make it more obvious. Who am I getting? I just feel like adding my nameplate to this side and having the tag there is just gonna feel like a lot. Maybe I'll put it in a corner. I'll put it like down here in the corner. That could be cute. Keep in mind you have a pocket lining up there, so avoid that. Otherwise you've messed it up, perhaps. I'm looking at the one I already made to decide if this is too low, and I think it is, so I'll put it on this side in the center on the main print here. And I don't need to further support this with additional foam, so I'm not going to. Just add our washer. Ba-bam. I think that's gonna look very pretty. So we can set that aside for right now. We'll go ahead and work on our gusset so that we can get our exterior all put together. So that is my exterior pieces and my D-rings. So I mentioned probably several times now, I'm adding a little overlay for my strap connectors. I'm gonna grab my side pieces, my foam side pieces. So I've cut these connectors. These are 2 by 4. These are gonna be how I attach my D-rings. You could use a hidden strap connector method if you'd prefer, but I think this will be nice. And this is gonna be another way that I can lower the foam so that it's not in the top of the bag, and I can completely avoid having foam and my zipper panel. So we're top stitching these. We folded the long raw edges into the center. Grabbing double-sided tape on the back side. Just gonna add a little square for right now, because I don't want this folded over on itself the whole way. I just want to partially do this so that we don't have a ton of bulk. So we'll just fold that over about like that. And then this piece here, I cut to 7 inches by 3 inches to create an overlay. And what's kind of funny is this ended up being the same width as the main panel overlay. So this created not necessarily a problem, but a design choice that I now have to make, which is make it line up or make it offset. And it kind of worked out that it was lined up for the other bag I made, but it was not well executed. So I'm gonna try to do a little bit better on this one. But first, I want to snip the top center. And that way I know where that is. I'm going to add a little more double-sided tape to this connector here. And I'm gonna measure how far down. Okay, 2.75 is where the top of the accent is on the other panel. So, got that marked in place. And then, so if this is here, where does this live? Ooh, I love that. Okay, so we're gonna place this 1.5 inches. No, 1 3/8 inches. Yes, 1 3/8 inches from this top centered. And then this is folded about 1 1/4. No, 1 3/8 as well. Okay, 1 3/8. That's the winner. It's the number of the day. All right, we've got this centered. I'm using my 1-inch ruler because it is the same width as my overlay, so that's centered. And I'm gonna stitch that on and then add my overlay. You technically don't have to. But if you have a domestic machine, this is definitely going to add as much reinforcement to this connector as possible. All right, so I've got those in place. And we're gonna sew this on up over, down, and across the bottom. Okay, I'll do this over here. All right. Oh man. Lighting is important, y'all. Okay. So 1 3/8 down from the top edge, and then I've top stitched this at 1/4 of an inch. But if you wanted to top stitch this piece at 1/4 and then top stitch this at 1/8, that would look good too. But that's what that's looking like. You can add a rivet. I'm not going to, I don't care. I think this is plenty reinforced. I'm gonna add some 1/4 inch double-sided tape just to help me keep this from shifting. And then line this up like that. And then we'll top stitch. And we'll just trim off the excess, it's no biggie. But before we no, I'm gonna top stitch it and then I'll baste foam. And we're just gonna cut off the excess nylon. Oh, I think that looks really pretty. And then you could add 2 rivets if you were adding rivets. I think it looks fine. We'll lay this in place right here and baste that on. There went the bobbin. Yikes, I might need 3 bobbins. So like my exterior isn't even together. Okay, I'm really excited for how this is gonna turn out. And then if you wanted to just quilt that whole side panel in with the foam, you could. And then we're gonna trim foam away. Oh, the stitch lines, there we go. Yeah, that's gonna be really nice. Less bulk at the top and yet still the same amount of structure because there's gonna be so much going on. So I'm excited. Oh my gosh, I have an hour left. That's okay, I don't have to finish this today. Okay. reinforce with tape. Got that there, there. Top stitch this at 1/8. Trimmed. All right, I'm going to top stitch the base of the bag to the foam. I already have my Decaville heavy, but what I want to do is mark out 1 inch from each side. And I'm just going to sew 4 lines total. And then I'm going to trim the foam out to reduce the bulk at the bottom. Again, things just sat kind of clunky for my liking. So there's that. And instead of trying to sew a box and pull my threads through to the back, I figured this will work. I don't mind the foam being in that top stitching because it's compressed. I just don't want the foam the way it is, you know? It's just a little much. I could use that for nameplates. So it's gonna give it a little extra squish at the bottom without being, oh yeah, without being just like this puffed up mess. Sounds mean, but you know. All right, so now we're going to center this on the side panel, and we're going to sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. These are all of our exterior pieces. And then your bulk can sit down to the bottom, and we're going to top stitch on the contrast. Ooh, that looks so good. Clipping that together, 1/2 inch seam allowance. Bulk to the bottom. Alrighty, so now we can put our exterior together. I'm going to start with what is the front. And hopefully everything can line up. I'm going to start by lining up my contrast pieces and hope, yeah, perfect. Everything else lines up too. And we're going to sew that at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, clipped the other side too, and this is a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then I'm going to trim that down to about 1/4 all the way. That, trim that down. Ooh, that looks so good. I was not this happy last night with the bag, but I was rushing through it for sure. Okay, so lining up that accent. That accent is not part of the pattern, so if you're following the pattern, just line up your pieces, the top and the bottom and all that. But if you are using anything thicker than quilting cotton, I highly recommend just putting that foam in the bottom half. I know I haven't finished the bag yet, but I can already tell that this is going to be so much better to sew together. 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then back stitch at the beginning and the end really well. Here's my other side, 1/2 inch. Oh, what happened? You sound weird. Oh, you're okay. Not bad. Okay. So now it's time to square the bottom, and I meant to snip the centers down here, but let's do that really quick. Starting from the center, clipping our way out, and then the bottom corner, you want to take care to line that up how she has it in the pattern. Yeah, this is going well. Just creates this little cute corner. And you want to keep all that lined up or you're going to have like a weird, pointy, ugly corner. Ask me how I know. All right, back stitching, keeping it to that 1/2 inch. We're going to trim the excess down. And you can do a second row if you feel like you need to. I feel like this is a bag my friend Katrina would really like. I'm gonna turn this right side out because I'm super excited and I don't know if I have enough time to finish it right now. No, I don't, let's be honest, but I wanna see it. The colors are so fun. So you can see there's that bottom corner. I like it. I like it a lot. I can already see that's gonna go way better without all that extra foam at the top. Again, this is for my material selection. If you were gonna make this out of all vinyl too, this would be the way to go. Like literally anything thicker than a quilting cotton, yeah, this is gonna be nice. I love these connectors. I like the way that feels. Something you could do to help reinforce your connectors is sew it with the foam on and create kind of like a little plateaued shape just to add some extra oomph to those connectors. But with the materials I've selected, I don't think there's a problem, but yeah. Ooh. I love the little letter on top. Okay, keep going. Let's do this. I'm not gonna finish, that's okay. Let's go ahead and work on our lining gusset really quick. we are gonna sew the bottom panel on at 5/8. Okay, something I noticed in the pattern and even in the pictures is there's a lot of bunching in the lining. So I want to kind of decrease that if possible. So yeah, I'm gonna try 5/8 here. I'm gonna stitch this down the same way the exterior is and then trim away. Well, I don't think I need to trim this away. It'll be okay. Clipping that together, 5/8. Yep, there it went. Knew it was coming. Ooh, I could also see this bag being really cute, just a little bit smaller to make it, yeah, a little bit smaller would be cute too. Like printed at 80% maybe. All right, we're gonna fold this in half, lining everything up and quickly snip our centers. And then we wanna snip the center of the side panel as well. That's gonna come in handy later. Okay, so gusset is ready. And now we can work on the rest of our lining. We've got one zippered pocket and a slip pocket with trim. And the trim is meant for a non-fraying material. So what I did, hold on, let me snip my centers really quick. You can go ahead and cut it down to a 1-inch wide piece if you'd like, but I added a little extra bulk to it. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it, so maybe I won't do that. I don't know. And you can baste the top edge together if you'd like. Pick which side is your front. And I'm gonna lay this face down. This is not part of the pattern. This was my little change. And I'm gonna sew this together at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then I'm gonna press this up and wrap it down so that it kind of hugs the top edge. And then I'll top stitch that and trim the excess on the back because you're not going to see it, and I can just glide my scissors across it. It'll be fine. It's fine. Is it the most beautiful? No, but it works. And then I'm also top stitching the very top edge. I think that'll look, yeah, kind of help compress those layers a little bit. Okay. And then there's a measurement given in the pattern that you'll want to place this down centered. And you can mark a line in the center to divide the pocket. Go over one stitch. And I'm going to trim away my excess, and then if you want to add a rivet to that little overlay section, you can. Okay. All right. Ooh, that looks really cute. So now we can actually go ahead and add our gusset to this piece. This is going to be attached the same way the exterior is. We're going to start at 1/2 inch and then increase to that 5/8 to help reduce bunching, and go ahead and trim that down. Now for my slip pocket, what I'm going to do is just top stitch about 1/8 of an inch over all that again, just so it doesn't pull out of the seam allowance over time. That would be sad. All right. Repeating this on the other side. Line that up. And now, since I'm starting from the bottom, I'm going to start at 5/8. And then go to the 1/2 inch at the top. Trimming that down. And adding a little extra to our slip pocket. And then lining up the center at the bottom, creating a squared base. And that is 5/8 again. Trim that down. Okay. It just looks so pretty. I love all of that together. That looks really good. All right. We're gonna work on our zippered pocket. We've got our main lining. Instead of doing a zipper pocket facing, I am doing an overlay. Oh, right here. I was like, where is my zipper tape though? Yeah. So we're gonna need 2 more zippers. One is for our zipper pocket and one is for the top zipper. Please take note of that top zipper measurement and cut it nice and straight if you can. And then the one I made, I added 2 zipper pulls too. I'm gonna do it again because I just like a zipper in the middle. And the way the zipper panel closes off, I think it lends itself to having a double zipper and it being fine. So I'll go ahead and add 2 zippers really quick. And all the materials that I'm using are available at mormino.com. So you can shop my website. The pattern is available from Bagstock Designs. I do have some of my own patterns. They're just, I don't know. They're fine. Okay, we've got our zippers on and they are beautifully installed. No bubbling. Yay. Set that aside for now. Add our other zipper. I got 20 minutes till noon. I might be okay, but I don't want to rush it. Anyway, let's go ahead and add our lining to our zipper. Lining right side up, zipper right side up. I'm going to sew that on at about 1/4 inch. And repeat that on the other open end of our zipper. So flip that so that the zipper is right side up. Get that nice and straight. Set that aside for now. I'm running out of pieces. That's always fun. We're gonna add double-sided tape. You can do 1/8 inch, you can do 1/4 to this overlay here. And then I'm gonna add one of my little woven labels to the inside. And this is gonna get placed 2.5 inches from the top. And I just so happen to have my favorite 12 by 2.5 inch ruler. So I can center this. There. I've pressed the top edge nicely up against my ruler, and now I can firmly press from the center out to get rid of any wrinkles or buckling. And then I'm just gonna pop that little woven label underneath the overlay there. And then we're gonna top stitch that 1/8 of an inch from the outermost edge, starting in the corner. I gotta like lock in. Stop in the corner. Stop in the corner. I'm using a very contrasting thread, so I'm trying to be as careful as possible. Okay, there we go. Pull those threads to the back. I try to cut these at different lengths so that I know which ones to tie together. These are like stuck inside of each other. Beautiful. Okay. And I'll kind of tie them all together. Burn it. Put it out of the way. Now we're going to trim everything inside of this away. I am doing this way different than the pattern. She uses just a facing for an old school zipper pocket, and I like the look, especially with a thicker material like this nylon. An overlay is going to be the way to go to reduce as much bulk as possible. And I'm just sliding the scissors along that fabric. Make sure to clean out the scissors so they cut as nicely as possible for as long as possible. Okay, what's going on at work? Oh, my mom's there. That's right. Cool. Oh. Oops, the accountant needed something. All right. So with my zipper pull to the left, I'm adding tape along the bottom edge and the top edge, just kind of covering my existing stitch line. And then we're going to center this over the stitching. Once we've got one side in place, we can go ahead and peel off the other, but we are not going to be stitching all the way around this. You can if you want. You just want to leave your lining pieces open and away from each other. I'm going to stitch under first. Okay, we've got that in place. Oh, that's so good. Long thread tails. We're going to stitch under first. Both lining pieces are up towards the top. And we're going to start about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And go slow, move our zipper pull if we need to. Stitching on the vinyl. Okay, and then remove that. And I really used to resist doing this kind of zipper, and then Shannon from Knotted Threads Co. bullied me into doing it. And so now I do it. I can be bullied. I mean, yeah, anyway. Bully away. So we'll pull these so they have even tension. We'll tie this together. This doesn't work great with a cotton thread of any sort. So you can't yank it as easily. So those outdoor threads or like a Tex 35 would be okay domestic wise. But for me, it's Tex 80 and up, you know. Some good quality thread. All right, we're gonna start where we ended on this side. Needle right in that same hole. Again, long thread tails. 1/8 of an inch. Don't think about how you have to pick up your daughter in a little bit. Just focus on your top stitch because you've still got a little bit. Okay. Pull those long thread tails to the back. And then we just have this little shape up here to reinforce. Try that like 3 times if you want. And then you could glue that if you feel like you need the extra reinforcement. I've heard people use fray check. You could use double-sided tape technically, or duct tape if you really wanted to. I'm going to trim these so that they are even. Keep them flat. Do not line them up. Just keep it flat. We're going to turn that over and top stitch. I don't know if you're supposed to top stitch through the zipper as well. I always do. Just like, why not? And then I'm going to flip up 1/2 inch or so of that bottom lining, trim the extra little bit that's there. And so that's what it'll look like. And then I'll repeat that on the other side. We can leave that unzipped. We can open up this bottom pocket and flatten it. And now we can connect the last of our gusset, and then we'll have to do the rest another time. Technically I have 20 more minutes, but I don't want to rush it. We can get it started. All right, lining up our side here. Start at 1/2. Increase to that 5/8. And trim away. Starting at the bottom now for this side. So I'm starting at the 5/8 and then slowly decrease to 1/2. Trim the excess. Now, if you are using a lot of interfacing or a material that you really can't crinkle too much, you may want to just leave the bottom of this side open and then finish it through the lining. But the lining is plenty big, or the lining zipper pocket I feel is plenty big, so I'm not concerned. And we will sew that side 5/8 inch. Okay. I'm just gonna do a rough fit really quick to make sure that our lining isn't saggy like some of the pictures I saw. I just want everything to fit in a beautiful way. I'm just doing a rough clip of everything, but it feels nice. Lining up my centers and my side seams. I do have one change I will be making to the zipper panel. There's like a final top stitch that you can see from the lining, and I just felt it was a little weird, so I'm gonna try to top stitch it while it's not, well, like top stitch it on the inside to where you can't see. I'll explain it when I do it. But I'm almost wondering if I need to just trim the top of the lining a little bit. Maybe. Like if on top of doing all that, if it needs to also be just a 1/4 inch shorter at the top edge. See how it, like, once, as it's sitting in the bag, see how it's sitting up like that? I'm having to force it to fit. It doesn't help that I have the zipper pockets together, so let me make that opposite, because the bulk of those pockets together is going to offset our materials a little bit too. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm poking the corners into the corner on each side, and I'm going to line up my center snips at the top. And clip my centers together. Yeah, I'm really thinking just chop off a 1/4 inch from the top. And a lot of that is because you've added foam to your exterior, which is taking up interior space. So if you want that lining to sit as well as possible, you want to do that. But you see how there's bagginess? And now maybe with a cotton material, it wouldn't do that because it'll cling a little bit more. But yeah, I just think that's going to help a lot. Okay. I'm glad I know. So doing that 5/8 is good, helpful, but I still just feel like it could be a little bit higher. but I'm so happy with this so far. Like, the foam just being in the bottom is good, very good. Oh. I'm obsessed with this. Like, I might keep it for myself. And I feel like the handles not being vinyl, because they don't have hardware, is more acceptable to me, but I prefer hardware with vinyl handles myself, so yeah. Now comes the fun part of attaching our zipper to the zipper panel. And this is where things become a little non-traditional. We are going to fold these in half so that we have a center. You can either mark it or cut it. This is my interior. I will say, I feel like maybe waterproof cotton and the nylon were not the best choices for the zipper panel. The Renew canvas or waterproof canvas light that I carry would be probably a little bit smarter for bulk reduction, but I think with what I've done, we should be sitting better. Anyway, we're gonna fold our zipper in half and mark the center here as well. And for this, I'll just use a pen. All right, this is gonna go face down on our exterior, lining up the center. And then we can baste this in place. You could also use tape, but just make sure that you're not taping the entire thing. You're only taping that zipper if you want to go that route. There's that. Okay, and then you are going to add your lining, and you will sew that the entire way. So we're lining up the centers. These are the same exact size. And this is a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Watch out for your zippers. This isn't really that situation where you can just, well, I guess you could move your zipper pulls off if you wanted, but you know, we're gonna press this flat on one side and then flip the other side over top of it. And we are only top stitching from zipper to zipper, not the entire way. So back stitch, finger press that, lay that flat. And then as we get to the other side of the zipper, stop when the tape isn't there anymore. And then repeat that on the other side. If you want to omit the need to baste, then we'll just add a little bit of tape. And then you can add the tape over top the zipper. And then there is Decaville light on this zipper panel, so you want to make sure that that is at the spot closest to your zipper. And then that same seam allowance all the way. You can move your zipper pulls if you need to. And then finger press. And then press this other side. Start there. Now the pattern does not call for 2 zipper pulls, but I added 2 zipper pulls. I think it gives it a little pizzazz. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna put right sides together. And instead of opening this seam flat, I am going to get rid of the bulk. So I'm not cutting through any zipper tape. I'm just thinning that seam. All right, and then we're gonna put right sides together, lining up lining, lining up exterior, clipping that, and then we're gonna sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Back stitching at the beginning and the end. Okay, I'm also going to trim that down. And then it's time to fold this. Kind of on itself. There we go. And then within the pattern, it has a measurement given. I'm not going to say it out loud. You're going to line that up with the corner and measure that in. And then she gives another measurement that just kind of helps you know if you've gone far enough all the way across. And like, this is where things get weird, but I think it's really cool because As I said in the cutting video, I've definitely had people ask, like, isn't there a way to just fully create, you know, an enclosed zipper panel? And like, well, this is it. So backstitch really well at the beginning and the end. You're sewing right on that line you created through the exterior and the lining. And then we're going to cut off the excess. And I left like a 1/4 inch last time, and I just felt there was too much bulk, so I'm doing about 1/4 or 1/8 this time. I don't usually love to leave that little zipper tape because the teeth can come undone over time, so really quick. Oh, I knew it. I cut it too close. My zipper is coming loose. Yep. On both. Just gonna add another little row of stitching over the teeth. I don't know if that's gonna help or hurt, but here we are. Okay. And then what she has you do is flip it, baste it, and then you're gonna top stitch on a seam, but I'm almost wondering if there's a way I can do it without doing it that way. I know that sounds really silly, but she says to line up your fabrics, but my issue is that, like, after all the bulk, you see that? That's what it's looking like. So if I were to line it up perfectly, like, it just kind of doesn't work. So I'm tempted to omit that step, because really all that does is it gives it a little more definition for that panel. So I'm like, I wonder if I could just do it right now. And like, maybe move the lining out of the way and just create a like a little bit of a seam here. I mean, I'm doing it. So my lining's out of the way, and I'm top stitching through my exterior, folded on itself, and my Decaville light, but my lining of it is out of the way. And like, that creates the seam without adding excess bulk. And then maybe everything will fit a little bit better, because my exterior seemed much bigger, even though it isn't, than my lining, but taking away this little bit. Maybe it'll fit better. So that gives it the illusion, but not underneath, where we don't really need it. Yeah, and everything fits maybe a little bit better. Sorry. somebody trying to sell something. Like, no, go away. It's 7 p.m. Do you have any shame? All right. So now we want to top stitch around the exterior of this. Keeping everything lined up. I'm keeping my center lines, center snips together. Okay. Oh, I think it's cute. I'm really happy with how that sits, and then you don't have that extra top stitching here, but you still have that like crisp definition there. So maybe it's good. All right, I did not trim this down, but I'm gonna. We're literally gonna cut off 1/4 of an inch because it just seems too baggy. And I'm still marking the center, so I'm just laying my ruler at that center line. And I did backstitch already at the top of all these panels, so hopefully we'll be okay. And to avoid, like if this works out for me, to avoid having to do that for your own, what you would do is maybe just create another fold line on that pattern piece to cut your lining a little bit shorter. And this actually might work out well. So one issue I'm just now thinking of is that the lining is going to be slightly, ever so slightly wider now at the top. So it might even be better off to do this at the bottom, but I think we'll be fine. All right, I got that all cut. And then this, we're gonna lay inside, linings right sides together. Exterior is face up. Line up that center seam of the zipper panel with the center of your side panel, because that is the only reference point besides the center here that we have. Oh yeah, this is fitting nicely. One issue I had with the one I made, I will be honest, I was making it in a bit of a rush. There was a lot of bunching on my pieces. So I think this is giving it just a little bit more space. And we are basting all of this together. Okay. And now we can unzip that panel. And we're gonna put, my preference is to put the lining inside the exterior, so I'm gonna flip this back out. I'm not worried about any intense crinkles that'll stay because nothing is interfaced. Like the stabilizer is there, but it's not pressed, fused, except for the base, but the base will be fine, it looks great. All right, so we're gonna turn this right side out to put that inside our exterior. Not worried about this being perfect, we just want to make sure that we can reach that. Okay, zipper pocket is on the back. I don't want my zipper pocket to be touching the other zipper pocket. And then we're going to line up centers. And our exterior side seams. Line up those center marks before you worry about much else. Like you can clip a little bit, but I can see I've got a little bit of bunching again, and I'm not going to freak out until I've got it all together. Because a lot of times you can just kind of gently press that away. And sometimes it looks worse than it actually will be, so just chill. We'll be chill. Okay. I'm gonna do about a 3/8 around the top. Yeah. I was like, did I run out of bobbin? Don't do that to me. lining and exterior. It was just about to get off. Okay, so I ended that. It's over now. I'm gonna go from this direction so it doesn't happen again. There we go. All right, now we can flip. So I'll pull my lining away from the exterior. Zipper pockets open, zipper panels open. We're gonna grab what's furthest away. And flip that through. Pull the bottom out. Do not flip your lining through yet, because you want that to be the last thing out. There we go. Just kind of push that. That's good. Okay. It's looking like a mess right now, but want to move that zipper panel away from the rest of our fabric. Press along the bottom corners. There's never going to be a better time to press those out all the way. So do that now. Kind of reshape everything. Throw that lining in. Before I worry about closing the zipper pocket, I just want to make sure that I've caught everything. Things are fitting together nicely, so I'm pressing in to the corners of the bottom of the lining, and now it's like, what? All of this gets shoved down inside. No! I knew it. I cut it too close. My zipper is coming loose. Yep. On both. It was perfect. Okay, it's fine. I shouldn't have cut that, and I knew it. I knew it. Anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold this and then figure out my life. But already there is still bulk in the corners, but it's not too bad, but it's because you've got your lining and your zipper panel, but also like all of it. So, yeah. I'm just gently rolling that seam back and forth, but it's way better than it was because I would have also had foam in the top seam, and that's just like, what? I know it's cut shorter, but not short enough. Not as short as my zipper tape. I even knew better. I knew better. I knew it. I knew you. Haven't even heard the song at this point. So just rolling that seam back and forth. I'm just like, how do I want to fix the zipper issue? How can I at this point? I don't know. This looks like a cute diaper bag, actually. So there is that. All that's left is to top stitch around and close up that zipper pocket, but the lining fits way nicer than it did before. Just clean off, man, completely. It isn't on this one, but it will eventually, I'm sure. But this one is very bad. I'm like, well, it doesn't technically need 2 zipper pulls because I can't get that back in. This is a nightmare. I should have taken a lighter to it before, maybe. Might have been okay. Or just not cut through the zipper tape, but technically it will still zip with the 1 zipper and it'll be fine. Rookie mistake. So yeah, note to self, just use much thinner materials. A vinyl wouldn't be too thick. Well, our mid-weight vinyl would not be too thick for that portion. Renew canvas, waterproof canvas light would be great. And now I'll know, but I just wanted to give these thicker materials a little bit of love, but they are not for every single project, you know? And then that zipper panel does kind of pop up so you can access your zipper pocket, can get into those slip pockets nicely. The lining fits nicely. And we'll go ahead and top stitch. I gotta check my bobbin. Risk it for the biscuit. If I regret it, I regret it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I'm gonna start at a side seam. I honestly think that stitching over the zipper again led to the downfall of it. It's a good way to show though that sometimes when you think you're reinforcing something, you're actually just perforating it more, further causing issues. Almost back to the beginning. We made it. Well, that's not cute. I didn't hold my starting thread. It's okay though, it just looks like ribbon. So what I do in that instance is I just take a lighter to it and slowly melt away some of it. All right. So that is the end of attempt 2 for the Mirabel Tote. You didn't see the first one, but it was there. It happened. There's a lot of structure on that top panel. We can go ahead and clip our crossbody strap. I like the crossbody strap with it. So pretty. I'm gonna brainstorm what to do to fix that. I don't know if I want to try to like stick it back in and then somehow flip it and top stitch it again. Kind of feel like it's a bit of a lost cause. I could use glue to create little stoppers so that it doesn't pull off, at least, to salvage this bag that I have spent a day and a half making, technically. But overall, I do like the pattern. I would say stick to the materials it calls for, I guess. Don't try to use thicker materials, at least for the top. It's just a lot of bulk. Even with the reduction of having no foam there, just feels like there's so much bulk. But it does create a nice strengthened top. It almost feels like it has a bit of a frame to it. You can kind of see. So yeah, I don't know. I don't absolutely love the pattern, but I do think it's fun. I think it's a great size, great work bag. You could easily get water bottle pockets in there as well. But yeah, the bottom's cute. And this is interfaced with Decaville Heavy. I just turned it, but you could give it a little press. So there are some creases, but it's not terrible. And I love the way the stitching looks on that recycled nylon. So thank you for hanging out. Thanks for watching this bit of a train wreck, and I will see you all later. Bye.